Think for a moment about the people you have known who lived well into their later years. Not just those who survived a long time, but those who remained themselves until the very end. The ones who could still garden, still travel, still play with grandchildren, still contribute. Now think about the others. The ones who spent their final decade or two in gradual decline, losing capacities one by one until their world became very small. Here is a question worth considering. Was the difference between these two groups simply luck, or was something else at work? The evidence increasingly points to a different explanation. It suggests that the body is not simply wearing out with time, but responding to conditions. It is adapting to what is asked of it. And this means the trajectory of the later years is not as fixed as we tend to assume. In this episode, we explore what the body is actually listening to, and how understanding this changes everything about how we think about aging. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The long view. Building a life of sustained vitality. There is a question that becomes more interesting with each passing year. It is not a question about avoiding disease, though that is part of it. It is not a question about living as long as possible, though that too is a natural consideration. The question is broader and more humane. It asks, what allows a person to remain capable, engaged, and fundamentally themselves as the decades accumulate? This is not a new question. Humans have been asking it for thousands of years, across every culture and continent. What is new is the information now available to us. We have data from populations studied over generations. We have observations from researchers who have followed thousands of lives from youth into advanced age. We have a clearer picture than any previous generation about which patterns tend to produce long, healthy lives and which patterns tend to produce the opposite. The purpose here is not to offer a program or a set of rules. Programs come and go. Rules tend to oversimplify. Instead, what follows is a framework for thinking about the aging process itself and the factors that influence its trajectory. It is a way of looking at health that emphasizes patterns over prescriptions and understanding over obedience. Some of what will be discussed may already be familiar. That is not a weakness. The most reliable insights in health are often the ones that have been observed repeatedly, across different times and different places. They are not secrets. They are simply truths that require no sensationalism to be valuable. The nature of aging as a process, before considering what might slow or shape the aging process. It helps to understand what aging actually is at a basic level. This is not about complex biology. It is about a simple observation that nearly everyone has made at some point. Think for a moment about two objects. One is a leather boot that has been worn for 20 years of hiking. The other is a leather boot that has sat in a box for 20 years, never worn. Both will show signs of age, but the signs will be different. The boot that was worn will have cracks at the flex points. The sole will be worn thin in certain places. The leather will have molded to the shape of the foot. The boot that sat in the box may look newer at first glance, but its leather will be stiff. It may have developed mildew. The stitching may be dry and brittle. If you tried to wear it for a long hike, it would likely fall apart quickly. This is a rough analogy for two different models of aging. One model is aging through use and adaptation. The other is aging through inactivity and stagnation. Neither stops the clock. Both result in change over time, but the quality of the result is entirely different. The human body is not a machine that simply wears out with use. It is a biological system that responds to stimuli. When you walk, your bones detect the stress and respond by becoming slightly denser in the areas that bear weight. When you lift something heavy, your muscles receive signals to strengthen. When you learn a new skill, your brain forms new connections. The body is constantly remodeling itself based on what you ask it to do. This is the first principle that matters. The body adapts to the demands placed upon it. If the demands decrease, the body adapts to that too. Muscles shrink. Bones become less dense. Coordination diminishes. The system downregulates because the perceived need for capacity has decreased. This is not a failure of the body. It is a normal response. But it is a response that can be influenced by the choices made each day. The body does not know how old you are chronologically. It only knows the conditions it is experiencing right now and adjusts accordingly. The implications of this are quietly revolutionary. It suggests that a significant portion of what we call aging is not the inevitable passage of time, but the cumulative effect of gradual reductions in demand. It is the difference between the boot that was worn and the boot that sat in the box. This is not to say that chronological age has no effect. It does. Cells have limits on how many times they can divide. Tissues accumulate various forms of wear over time. But these intrinsic processes are only part of the story. The other part is the response, or lack of response, to the environment and activities that fill each day. Understanding this distinction shifts the focus from simply waiting and hoping to something more active. It suggests that the choices made in middle age and beyond are not trivial. They are, in fact, shaping the trajectory of the decades that follow. The body is listening. It is responding. It is keeping score in its own way. The body's response to physical demand. The relationship between physical demand and physical capacity is one of the most consistent observations in all of human biology. It applies to nearly every system in the body and operates according to a logic that is both simple and elegant. Consider what happens when a person walks regularly. The legs move. The heart beats slightly faster. The lungs exchange more air. The muscles of the legs and core contract repeatedly. None of this is dramatic. It is simply a moderate, repeated demand placed on the system. The body's response to this moderate demand is not immediate. It happens over hours and days following the activity. The muscles that were used synthesize new protein to repair and slightly strengthen themselves. The heart becomes marginally more efficient at pumping blood. The capillaries in the legs may increase slightly to improve blood flow. The bones of the legs and hips receive signals to maintain their density. None of these changes are visible from one day to the next, but over months and years, they accumulate into something substantial. The person who walks regularly at age 60 will have stronger legs, a more efficient heart, and denser bones than they would have had if they had remained sedentary. They will also have better balance, faster reaction times, and greater endurance for daily activities. Now consider what happens when physical demand decreases. This is not hypothetical. It happens to nearly everyone at some point, often gradually. A person stops taking the stairs because it became slightly difficult. They drive rather than walk because it is more convenient. They sit for longer periods because their daily routine no longer requires standing. The body responds to this decrease in demand with the same reliability with which it responded to the increase. Muscles begin to atrophy. Bones begin to lose density. The heart becomes slightly less efficient. Balance begins to deteriorate. These changes are also gradual. They are not noticeable in a week or a month, but over years. They accumulate into a meaningful loss of capacity. This is sometimes described as a spiral. Reduced activity leads to reduced capacity. Reduced capacity makes activity more difficult. Increased difficulty leads to further reduction in activity. The spiral continues downward, and each step makes the next step more likely. The important insight is that this spiral is not primarily driven by age. It is driven by the reduction in demand. Age simply provides the context in which the reduction occurs. A 30-year-old who becomes sedentary will also lose capacity. though they may have more reserve to lose before it becomes noticeable. An 80-year-old who maintains physical demands will retain far more capacity than their sedentary peer, though they cannot retain the capacity of a 30-year-old. This is where the concept of reserve becomes relevant. Reserve is the cushion of capacity that exists above the level needed for daily life. A person with good reserve can walk upstairs without getting winded. They can carry groceries without strain. They can recover from a minor illness without significant loss of function. A person with low reserve may find stairs difficult, groceries heavy, and a minor illness a major disruption. Building reserve takes time. It requires sustained demand placed on the system over months and years. But maintaining reserve once built requires less effort. The body, once adapted to a certain level of demand, can maintain that adaptation with somewhat less stimulus than was required to build it initially. This is another feature of the system that works in favor of those who maintain activity throughout life. The practical implication is straightforward. The activities that build and maintain reserve are not exotic. They are the basic movements that humans have performed for most of their existence. Walking, standing, lifting, carrying, reaching, bending. The challenge in modern life is that these movements have been engineered out of daily existence. Chairs replace standing. Cars replace walking. Machines replace lifting. The demands have disappeared, and the body has responded accordingly. Reintroducing these demands does not require a gym membership or special equipment. It requires awareness and intention. It means choosing the stairs when the elevator is available. It means parking farther from the store entrance. It means carrying purchases rather than pushing a cart for very small loads. It means standing while talking on the phone. It means bending to pick something up rather than using a tool to avoid bending. These small choices, repeated thousands of times, signal to the body that certain capacities are still needed. The body responds by maintaining those capacities. This is not a theory. It is a description of how biological systems work. The role of movement in daily function. Movement is often discussed as if it were a separate activity, something to be scheduled and completed like an errand. This framing misses something essential. Movement is not separate from life. It is the medium through which life is experienced. Every interaction with the world requires movement of some kind. This distinction matters because it affects how people think about physical activity. If movement is something to be scheduled, it becomes optional. It competes with other demands for time and attention. It can be postponed, reduced, or eliminated entirely without immediate consequence. The long-term consequences are real, but they are distant and therefore easy to ignore. If movement is understood as the foundation of daily function, the calculation changes. The question is no longer whether to make time for exercise. The question is whether to maintain the ability to live independently, to travel, to play with grandchildren, to pursue hobbies that require physical capability. These are not abstract concerns. They are the concrete experiences that make life worth living. Consider the specific movements that appear in daily life. Rising from a chair without using arms. Walking up a flight of stairs while carrying something. Reaching for an item on a high shelf. Bending to tie a shoe. Turning to look behind while backing up a car. Stepping over an obstacle on a sidewalk. Catching oneself after a minor trip. Lifting a bag of groceries from the trunk. Getting down on the floor to play with a child, and then getting back up. Each of these movements requires a combination of strength, flexibility, balance, and coordination. Each is a skill that can be maintained or lost. Each becomes more difficult if not practiced regularly. And each, when lost, represents a meaningful reduction in independence and quality of life. The movements that matter most are not the ones performed in a gym. They are the ones performed in the course of living. The gym, if used, is simply a place to practice and maintain the capacities needed for those real-world movements. The goal is not to become good at gym exercises. The goal is to remain good at life. This reframing has practical implications. It suggests that the most effective forms of movement are those that transfer directly to daily activities. Squatting, whether with or without weight, maintains the ability to rise from low seats and pick things up from the floor. Carrying objects, whether weights or groceries, maintains the ability to transport things through daily life. Walking on uneven ground maintains balance and ankle stability. Reaching and pulling maintain the ability to open doors and handle objects. It also suggests that variety matters. Daily life does not consist of repeating the same movement over and over. It consists of an endless variety of movements, many of them unpredictable. The body that has practiced many different movements is better prepared for whatever daily life presents. The body that has practiced only one movement, or none, is more vulnerable to the unexpected. This is one reason why activities that involve natural, varied movement are particularly valuable. Gardening, for example, involves squatting, reaching, lifting, carrying, twisting, and walking on uneven ground. It also provides the satisfaction of a tangible result. Hiking involves walking on variable terrain with changes in elevation, requiring constant adjustments in balance and effort. Dancing involves coordination, balance, memory, and social connection. Each of these activities builds capacity while also providing meaning and enjoyment. The consistency of movement matters more than the intensity. A moderate level of activity performed most days produces greater long-term benefit than occasional bursts of intense effort followed by long periods of inactivity. The body responds to sustained patterns, not isolated events. It is the regularity of demand that signals to the body that certain capacities must be maintained. For those in middle age and beyond, this is encouraging news. The goal is not to achieve peak athletic performance. The goal is to maintain the capacity for a full, independent life. This requires less intensity than many assume, but it does require consistency. It is the accumulation of small efforts over time that produces the most reliable result. The body's internal environment. While movement addresses the body's external demands, there is another layer that operates largely outside conscious awareness. This is the internal environment, the chemical and biological conditions in which cells live and function. This environment is shaped by what enters the body, by the rhythms of rest and activity, and by the signals sent through the nervous system. The internal environment matters because it determines how well cells can do their work. Cells require specific conditions to function optimally. They need the right balance of nutrients. They need adequate oxygen. They need waste products removed efficiently. They need signals from hormones and other messengers to arrive clearly. When these conditions are met, cells can repair damage, generate energy, and communicate effectively. When conditions are poor, cellular function suffers, and over time, this suffering accumulates into the visible signs of aging. One of the most studied elements of the internal environment is the set of nutrients that cells require for basic function. These are not mysterious compounds. They are the vitamins, minerals, and other substances that have been recognized as essential for decades. What has become clearer in recent years is that many people, particularly in certain regions and during certain seasons, do not obtain adequate levels of some of these nutrients from food and sun exposure alone. Vitamin D is a prominent example. It is actually a hormone precursor, produced in the skin upon exposure to sunlight. It plays a role in calcium absorption, bone health, and immune function. Observations have consistently linked adequate vitamin D levels with better health outcomes across multiple categories. The challenge with vitamin D is that production depends on sunlight of sufficient intensity for significant portions of the year. In many locations, the sun is too low in the sky to trigger production, even on clear days. Studies have found that even people who work outdoors can have insufficient levels during certain months. This is not a matter of personal failure. It is a matter of geography and season. For this reason, many researchers and clinicians have suggested that supplementation may be appropriate for a large portion of the population during certain times of year. This is not about megadoses or extreme measures. It is about maintaining adequate levels of a nutrient that the body would normally produce but cannot due to environmental conditions. Vitamin K2 often appears alongside discussions of vitamin D. These two nutrients work in relation to each other. Vitamin D increases the absorption of calcium from the digestive tract. Vitamin K2 helps direct that calcium to the bones and teeth, where it belongs, rather than allowing it to deposit in soft tissues where it could cause problems. This relationship is an example of how nutrients do not work in isolation. They operate as part of a network, each influencing the effects of others. Beyond specific nutrients, the internal environment is shaped by what is not consumed. The body has systems for processing and eliminating various substances, but these systems have limits. When the intake of certain compounds exceeds the body's ability to process them, the internal environment becomes less hospitable for optimal cellular function. Sugar is one such compound. In moderate amounts, from whole food sources, it is not problematic. But the typical modern diet includes sugar in quantities and forms that are far outside the range of human evolutionary experience. The body's systems for managing sugar were not designed for constant intake. When sugar is consistently present at high levels, cells become less responsive to the signals that normally regulate its use. This condition, sometimes described as insulin resistance, affects not only how the body handles sugar, but also how it manages inflammation and other processes relevant to aging. This is not about eliminating sugar entirely. That would be both difficult and unnecessary for most people. It is about recognizing that the internal environment responds to what is consistently present. Occasional treats have a different effect than daily floods of sugar from processed foods and sweetened beverages. The pattern matters more than any single instance. The internal environment is also influenced by the timing of food intake. The body operates on rhythms that have been established over millions of years of evolution. These rhythms affect how efficiently food is processed, how energy is stored and used, and how cells perform repair work. When eating patterns align with these natural rhythms, the internal environment is more stable. When eating patterns fight against them, the environment becomes more chaotic. There is growing interest in the concept of giving the digestive system regular periods without food. This is not a new idea. It appears in various forms across many cultures and traditions. The rationale is that during periods without food intake, the body shifts its focus from processing incoming nutrients to performing maintenance on existing cells. This maintenance includes cleaning out damaged components and recycling materials that are no longer functional. These processes appear to be important for maintaining cellular health over time. The practical application does not require extreme measures. It might mean finishing dinner earlier in the evening and not eating again until breakfast the next day, extending the natural overnight fast. It might mean occasionally having a later breakfast or an earlier dinner. The goal is not deprivation. It is providing the body with regular intervals in which it can perform maintenance without the competing demand of digestion. The nervous system and its influence. The internal environment is not shaped only by nutrients and food timing. It is also shaped by signals from the nervous system, particularly those related to stress and relaxation. These signals affect hormone levels, inflammation, digestion, and nearly every other aspect of physiology. The stress response is an ancient system designed for short-term survival. When a threat appears, the body mobilizes resources. Heart rate increases. Blood pressure rises. Digestion slows. Glucose is released into the bloodstream. Attention sharpens. This response is appropriate and even life-saving when the threat is real and temporary. A tiger appears. You run. The tiger goes away. The response ends. The challenge in modern life is that the stress response is activated constantly, often by threats that are not physical and do not resolve quickly. Financial worries, work pressures, concerns about family, constant exposure to alarming news. These activate the same physiological response as a tiger, but they do not go away. The body remains in a state of high alert for extended periods. When the stress response is chronically activated, the internal environment changes. Cortisol, a primary stress hormone, remains elevated. This affects sleep, digestion, and immune function. It changes how fat is stored. It can impair the formation of new memories. Over years, chronic stress takes a measurable toll on the body. The opposite of the stress response is sometimes called the relaxation response. This is the state in which the body performs maintenance, digestion, and repair. Heart rate slows. Blood pressure decreases. Digestion proceeds efficiently. Cells perform their routine maintenance. This state is as natural as the stress response, but it requires conditions that allow it to activate. The challenge is that the relaxation response cannot fully activate while the stress response is running. The two are mutually exclusive to a large degree. This means that chronic stress is not just unpleasant. It actively prevents the body from performing the maintenance that keeps it healthy over time. This is where the concept of nervous system balance becomes relevant. The goal is not to eliminate stress entirely. That would be impossible and, to some degree, undesirable. Some stress is necessary for growth and adaptation. The goal is to ensure that periods of stress are followed by periods of recovery, allowing the relaxation response to do its work. There are many ways to support this balance. Deep, slow breathing is one of the most direct. The breath is unique in that it can be controlled voluntarily, but also reflects the state of the autonomic nervous system. By consciously slowing the breath, signals are sent to the nervous system that conditions are safe, allowing the relaxation response to engage. Time in nature appears to have a similar effect. Something about natural environments, perhaps the combination of gentle stimuli and the absence of urgent demands, allows the nervous system to shift toward a calmer state. This is not mystical. It is observable and repeatable. Regular patterns of light and dark also influence the nervous system through their effects on daily rhythms. Bright light early in the day helps set the internal clock for alertness during waking hours. Dim light in the evening allows the body to prepare for sleep. This rhythm affects not only sleep quality, but also mood, energy, and stress resilience. Social connection is another powerful influence on the nervous system. Positive interactions with trusted others trigger the release of chemicals that promote feelings of safety and connection. Isolation, by contrast, keeps the nervous system in a state of heightened alert, as if the absence of the group were itself a threat. These factors are often discussed as if they were separate from physical health, perhaps belonging to the category of mental or emotional well-being. But this separation is artificial. The nervous system is physical. Its signals have physical effects. The state of the nervous system is a direct contributor to the internal environment in which cells live and function. Patterns of eating across the lifespan. Food is the material from which the body is built and maintained. Every cell, every enzyme, every signal molecule is constructed from components that originally came from food. This makes the pattern of eating over a lifetime a primary determinant of how well the body functions. The quality of food matters in ways that are increasingly well understood. Whole foods, those that are close to their natural state, provide a complex mixture of nutrients that work together in ways that isolated supplements cannot replicate. A vegetable contains not only vitamins, but also fibers and various plant compounds that influence how those vitamins are absorbed and used. A piece of fish contains not only protein, but also specific types of fat that are difficult to obtain from other sources. Processed foods, by contrast, have been stripped of many of these naturally occurring compounds and supplemented with others for purposes of shelf life, texture, or taste. The result is a product that provides calories and perhaps some isolated nutrients, but lacks the full spectrum of substances that the body evolved to expect from food. Over time, a diet heavy in processed foods creates a different internal environment than a diet based on whole foods. The balance of different food types also matters. Protein becomes increasingly important with age because the body becomes slightly less efficient at using it. The same amount of protein that maintained muscle in a younger person may not be sufficient in later decades. This does not mean enormous quantities are needed. It means that attention to adequate protein at each meal can make a meaningful difference in maintaining muscle mass and function. Fats are necessary for many bodily processes, including the absorption of certain vitamins and the structure of cell membranes. The type of fat matters. Fats from whole food sources like fish, nuts, seeds, and olives are associated with better health outcomes than fats from processed sources. Again, this is about patterns over time, not occasional choices. Carbohydrates are the body's preferred fuel source for many activities, but the form in which they are consumed affects how the body responds. Carbohydrates that come with fiber, as in whole fruits, vegetables, and grains, are processed more slowly and have a different effect on blood sugar than refined carbohydrates that have been stripped of fiber. The body's response to carbohydrates is influenced not only by the amount, but by the company they keep. The pattern of eating across the day also influences health. Most people in modern societies eat from the time they wake until shortly before sleep, with food consumed at multiple points throughout. This pattern means the digestive system is constantly active and insulin levels remain elevated for much of the day. There is never a long period when the body shifts fully into the maintenance mode that occurs during fasting. This is where the concept of time-restricted eating becomes relevant. The idea is simply to concentrate food intake into a consistent window of time each day, allowing for a longer overnight fast. This might mean eating first at mid-morning and finishing by early evening, or any pattern that works with an individual's schedule and preferences. The key is consistency and duration. A daily fasting period of 12 to 14 hours allows time for the body to shift into maintenance mode before the next day's eating begins. This approach does not require changing what is eaten, though that may also be beneficial. It simply changes when eating occurs. For many people, this is easier than making dramatic changes to food choices. It aligns eating patterns more closely with the body's natural rhythms and provides regular opportunities for cellular maintenance. Hydration is another aspect of eating that deserves attention. The sense of thirst becomes less acute with age, making it possible to become dehydrated without feeling thirsty. Dehydration affects energy, mental clarity, and physical function. It can also contribute to falls by affecting balance and blood pressure regulation. Regular intake of fluids throughout the day, primarily water, supports all bodily systems. None of this requires perfection. The idea that diet must be flawless to be beneficial is paralyzing and unnecessary. Small, consistent improvements in food choices and eating patterns accumulate over time into meaningful differences in how the body feels and functions. The goal is not a perfect diet. The goal is a pattern of eating that supports health over the long term. The social environment as a health factor. Humans evolved as social animals. This is not a cultural preference, but a biological reality. For most of human existence, survival depended on being part of a group. Isolation meant vulnerability. The body developed systems that reflect this history. The social environment influences health through multiple pathways. There are direct effects on the nervous system. As mentioned earlier, there are behavioral effects. As people in strong social networks tend to encourage healthy behaviors in each other. There are practical effects. As social connections provide resources and support during difficult times. Research that has followed large populations over many years consistently finds that people with strong social ties live longer and healthier lives than those who are isolated. This effect is independent of other factors like income, health behaviors, or baseline health status. It is not small. The difference in longevity associated with social connection is comparable to the difference between smoking and not smoking, though this is rarely discussed with the same urgency. The mechanisms behind this observation are becoming clearer. Social connection reduces the chronic activation of the stress response. It provides opportunities for physical activity and shared meals. It creates accountability and encouragement for healthy behaviors. It offers cognitive stimulation through conversation and shared activities. It provides meaning and purpose, which themselves appear to have biological effects. As people age, the social environment often changes. Retirement removes daily contact with coworkers. Children move away. Friends may become ill or pass away. Mobility may decrease, making it harder to maintain connections. These changes are not inevitable, but they are common. They require intentional effort to counter. This effort might take many forms. It might mean maintaining contact with friends through regular phone calls or visits. It might mean joining groups organized around interests rather than work. It might mean participating in community activities. It might mean volunteering, which provides social connection along with a sense of purpose. It might mean simply making the effort to be around other people regularly, even when it feels easier to stay home. The quality of social connections matters as much as quantity. A few close, trusted relationships provide more benefit than many superficial ones. The feeling of being understood and valued appears to be particularly important. This is different from simply being in the presence of others. It requires genuine connection. For those in long-term relationships, the quality of that primary relationship has been shown to affect health outcomes. Relationships characterized by warmth and support are associated with better health than those characterized by conflict and distance. This is not about blame. It is about recognizing that the closest relationships are also the most biologically relevant. Social connection also provides cognitive benefits. Conversation requires attention, memory, and language processing. Shared activities require coordination and problem solving. These demands keep cognitive systems engaged in ways that solitary activities cannot replicate. The brain, like the body, adapts to the demands placed upon it. Social engagement provides a rich variety of cognitive demands. The implication is that maintaining and building social connections is not merely a matter of personal preference or emotional well-being. It is a health behavior with measurable consequences. It deserves the same attention as diet and physical activity in any comprehensive approach to aging well. The role of purpose and engagement. Beyond social connection, there is another factor that appears consistently in observations of people who age well. This factor is harder to name precisely. It might be called purpose, or engagement, or simply having reasons to get up in the morning. Research has attempted to measure this quality by asking people questions about whether they feel their lives have meaning, whether they have goals they are working toward, whether they feel useful to others. People who answer these questions positively tend to live longer and maintain function better than those who do not. Again, this effect is independent of other factors. The mechanisms are likely multiple. A sense of purpose may motivate people to maintain their health because they have reasons to stay healthy. It may provide resilience against stress by framing difficulties as part of a larger, meaningful story. It may encourage social connection, as purpose often involves others. It may directly affect the nervous system in ways that promote health. Purpose does not have to be grand. It does not require saving the world or achieving fame. For many people, purpose is found in caring for family, in pursuing a craft or hobby, in contributing to community, in continuing to learn, in passing on knowledge to younger generations. It is the sense that one's presence and actions matter to someone or something. This sense of mattering is threatened by the structure of modern life, particularly after retirement. Work provides not only income, but also a ready-made structure for purpose and social connection. When work ends, that structure must be replaced. Those who successfully replace it tend to fare better than those who do not. The replacement does not have to be paid work. It might be volunteering, which provides structure, social connection, and the sense of contributing. It might be caregiving, though this can also be demanding. It might be creative work, whether writing, painting, music, or craft. It might be learning, taking classes, or teaching oneself new skills. It might be physical pursuits, training for events, or simply exploring natural areas. The common element is forward movement. Purpose implies direction, a sense that one is going somewhere, even if the destination is modest. Stasis, by contrast, implies that the story is over, that nothing new will happen. The body and mind seem to respond differently to these two states. This is one reason why goals matter, even small ones. A goal to walk a certain distance, to complete a project, to learn a skill, to visit a place, to help a specific person. Goals provide structure for effort and a sense of progress. They create the experience of moving forward rather than simply waiting. For those in middle age and beyond, the question of purpose is not abstract. It is practical. What gives meaning to the days? What makes the effort of maintaining health worthwhile? The answers to these questions are personal and individual. There is no single correct answer. But having an answer appears to matter for health. The environment beyond the body. The immediate environment in which a person lives also affects health in ways that are easy to overlook. This includes the physical environment of home and neighborhood, as well as the broader environmental factors that influence daily life. The home environment can either support or undermine health. A home that requires steps to enter may become a barrier to leaving if mobility decreases. A home with poor lighting increases the risk of falls. A home that is difficult to clean may accumulate dust and allergens. A home that isolates its occupant from neighbors reduces opportunities for casual social contact. Modifications to the home environment can have significant effects on safety and function. Simple changes like improving lighting, removing tripping hazards, installing grab bars in bathrooms, and arranging frequently used items within easy reach can reduce risk and maintain independence. These are not expensive or complicated changes, but they require awareness of potential problems. The neighborhood environment also matters. Walkable neighborhoods with sidewalks, safe crossings, and destinations within walking distance encourage physical activity. Neighborhoods that require driving for every errand discourage it. Access to parks and natural areas provides opportunities for recreation and stress reduction. Proximity to others provides opportunities for social connection. For those who live in areas that do not support walking, the challenge is greater but not insurmountable. It may require more intentional effort to find places to walk, whether driving to a park or walking in a mall during inclement weather. It may require creating social connections through means other than casual neighborhood encounters. The broader environment includes factors like air quality and exposure to various substances. Poor air quality affects respiratory and cardiovascular health. Chronic exposure to certain chemicals may have subtle but cumulative effects. While individuals have limited control over these factors at a population level, awareness can inform choices about where to live and how to reduce personal exposure. Seasonal changes also affect the environment and, through it, health. Reduced daylight in winter affects mood and energy for many people. Cold weather may discourage outdoor activity. These effects are predictable and can be planned for. Anticipating the seasonal challenges and having strategies to address them reduces their impact. The environment is not destiny. People can and do thrive in a wide range of environmental conditions. But the environment shapes what is easy and what is difficult. Making the environment work for you, rather than against you, is a form of health strategy that receives less attention than it deserves. Integrating the principles. The factors discussed so far do not operate in isolation. They interact with each other in complex ways. Physical activity affects the internal environment. The internal environment affects energy and mood. Energy and mood affect social engagement. Social engagement affects purpose. Purpose motivates physical activity. The system is circular and interconnected. This interconnectedness has two important implications. First, it means that improvements in one area tend to support improvements in others. A person who begins walking regularly may find they have more energy, which makes them more likely to cook healthy meals, which improves their internal environment, which gives them more confidence to engage socially, which provides motivation to continue walking. The benefits compound. Second, it means that no single factor is determinative. A person cannot outwalk a poor diet. Social connection cannot fully compensate for complete inactivity. Purpose cannot replace the need for adequate nutrition. The system requires attention across multiple dimensions. This can feel overwhelming if approached as a list of requirements. It is more useful to think in terms of direction. The goal is not perfection in any area. The goal is gradual movement toward patterns that support health. Small improvements in multiple areas accumulate into substantial change over time. The direction of movement matters more than the current position. A person who is sedentary but begins walking 10 minutes a day is moving in a healthy direction. A person who eats many processed foods but adds one serving of vegetables each day is moving in a healthy direction. A person who is isolated but makes one social contact per week is moving in a healthy direction. These movements, sustained over time, produce results. The time frame for seeing results varies. Some changes, like improved sleep from better stress management, may be noticeable within days or weeks. Others, like maintaining muscle mass or bone density, are measured in years. The absence of immediate results does not mean the effort is wasted. The body is keeping score in its own way and on its own schedule. This is one reason why consistency matters more than intensity. Intense effort for a short period produces less lasting change than moderate effort sustained over a long period. The body adapts to what is consistently present, not to what is occasionally intense. Building health is like building a house. It happens one brick at a time, with each brick representing a day of consistent choices. Observations across populations. Some of the most informative insights about aging come from observing populations where people consistently live long, healthy lives. These are not necessarily the wealthiest populations or those with the most advanced medical care. They are often traditional communities where certain patterns of living have been maintained across generations. Researchers who have studied these populations have noted common features. People in these communities are physically active throughout life, not as exercise, but as part of daily life. They walk, They garden. They hunt. They gather. They build. Their bodies are exposed to regular, moderate physical demands. They eat whole foods, prepared simply. Their diets are based on plants, with meat and fish as supplements rather than the center of every meal. They eat what is available locally and seasonally. They do not count nutrients or worry about specific ratios. They simply eat the foods that their environment provides. They maintain social connections across generations. Elderly people are not isolated from the young. They are integrated into family and community life. They have roles and responsibilities. They are valued for their experience and wisdom. They are not separated from the flow of life. They have a sense of purpose that extends beyond themselves. This might be religious, or familial, or community-based. They feel that their lives matter, that they contribute to something larger than their own survival. This sense of meaning appears to carry them forward. They do not live in a constant state of stress. Their lives have challenges, certainly, but the challenges are followed by recovery. They have rhythms of work and rest, activity and relaxation. They are not constantly bombarded by alarming information or artificial demands. These observations are not prescriptions. Modern life is different from traditional life in countless ways, and most people would not choose to trade one for the other. But the observations do suggest that certain human needs are not negotiable. The body still requires physical activity, whole food, social connection, purpose, and rest, even in a world that makes these requirements difficult to meet. The challenge for those living in modern societies is to meet these requirements within the context of contemporary life. This requires more intention than it would in a traditional setting. The default patterns of modern life do not naturally produce these conditions. They must be created. A framework for thinking about health. What emerges from all of this is not a specific program, but a way of thinking. It is a framework for evaluating choices and patterns based on their likely effects over time. This framework has several components. The first component is demand. What demands are being placed on the body? Are they sufficient to maintain capacity? Are they varied enough to maintain a range of abilities? Are they consistent enough to signal that capacities are needed? The body adapts to what is asked of it. The question is what is being asked. The second component is supply. What is being provided to the body? Is the internal environment supportive of cellular function? Are adequate nutrients available? Are there regular periods without food intake to allow for maintenance? Is hydration sufficient? The body can only work with what it is given. The third component is signal. What messages is the nervous system receiving? Is it mostly in a state of alert or a state of calm? Are there regular periods of recovery after stress? Is there social connection that signals safety? Is there purpose that signals meaning? The nervous system translates these signals into physiological effects. The fourth component is environment. What surrounds the body? Does the physical environment support or hinder healthy patterns? Does the social environment provide connection? Does the broader environment expose the body to harmful substances? The environment shapes what is possible and what is likely. These components are not separate. They interact continuously. Demand affects supply through nutrient needs. Supply affects signal through blood sugar and other factors. Signal affects demand through energy and motivation. Environment affects all of them. The system is dynamic and responsive. The value of this framework is that it provides a way to think about health that is not dependent on any specific intervention or product. It applies across different diets, different forms of exercise, different living situations. It focuses on principles rather than rules. It accommodates individuality while maintaining a coherent structure. The question of time. Time is the medium in which health is built or lost. A single day of healthy choices produces no visible effect. 1,000 days produce a visible effect. 10,000 days produce a transformation. The body does not respond to intentions or hopes. It responds to what actually happens, day after day. This is both challenging and liberating. It is challenging because it requires patience. The results of good choices are not immediately visible, which can make it difficult to maintain motivation. It is liberating because it means that small, consistent efforts are sufficient. No single day is decisive. No single meal determines the outcome. The trajectory is set by the accumulated weight of many days, each one contributing a small amount to the final result. For those in middle age and beyond, this perspective is particularly relevant. There is still time for the accumulated weight of days to shift the trajectory. Decades remain in which patterns can be established and maintained. The choices made now will be reflected in the body years from now. The body is keeping score, and it has a long memory. This does not mean that past choices are irrelevant. They have contributed to the current state, but they do not determine the future. The body remains responsive to current conditions. It continues to adapt to whatever demands are placed upon it, whatever supply it receives, whatever signals it detects. The system is always listening. The question is what it will hear. Concluding thoughts. The pursuit of health in later years is not about fighting against time. It is about working with the body's own logic. The body wants to maintain function. It is designed to adapt, to repair, to keep going. It simply needs the right conditions to do its work. These conditions are not mysterious. They have been understood for a long time, across many cultures and eras. Move regularly. Eat real food. Connect with others. Find meaning. Rest. These are not revolutionary ideas. They are ancient wisdom supported by modern observation. What makes them difficult is not complexity, but consistency. The modern world is structured in ways that work against these simple requirements. It takes effort to maintain them. It requires swimming against a current that flows toward convenience, isolation, and passivity. But the effort is worthwhile. The alternative is a gradual loss of function, a slow narrowing of possibilities, a shrinking of the world. The choice is not between immortality and death. It is between a longer period of capability and a longer period of decline. It is between being the boot that was worn and the boot that sat in the box. The body will age regardless. That is not a question. The question is how it will age. Will it age through use, adapting and strengthening in response to demand, or will it age through disuse, losing capacity because capacity was not required? The answer is written in the choices of each day. There is no finish line in this process. There is no point at which the work is done and one can rest on accumulated health. The body continues to respond to current conditions. Maintenance is forever. But maintenance becomes easier when it becomes habitual, when the patterns are established and the effort required to sustain them decreases. This is the long view of health. It is not about quick fixes or dramatic interventions. It is about the patient accumulation of small advantages, day after day, year after year. It is about understanding the body's logic and working with it rather than against it. It is about accepting the reality of time while refusing to be diminished by it. The body has been adapting to conditions for millions of years. It knows what to do. It simply needs the right conditions to do it. Providing those conditions, as consistently as possible, is the work of a lifetime. It is work that never ends, but it is also work that pays dividends in every year of life that follows. In the end, the goal is not to live forever. The goal is to live fully, with capacity and connection and meaning, for as long as life lasts. This is a goal worth pursuing, not with desperation, but with steady, patient effort. The body is ready. It has been waiting. The single most important takeaway from everything we have explored is this: the body is always listening. always adapting, and the quality of your later years will reflect the demands you placed upon it, the fuel you provided, and the signals you sent, day after day, across the decades. If this perspective resonates with you, we would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments. What has your own experience taught you about the way the body responds to the conditions of life? And if you would like to continue this exploration, we invite you to explore the other videos in our library and subscribe so you do not miss the wisdom yet to come. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.